On page 23 of the plans, we have a parts list. These are the exact number of pieces you need to paint in order to do the walls of the house that are pre-painted. Here's the brick panels. Here are from the 225 half timber mold, and these are one from the 227 window and door mold. Since this is the exact number you need, it's probably a good idea to paint at least one extra of most of these pieces, just in case you drop one or break one, or you never know what's going to happen. When it comes to the timbers, the long timbers, I would definitely give yourself a few extras of those, because those for some reason are just a little easier to use up and break than the others. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pre-paint all of these brick panel pieces before we glue anything together. This I found is just the easiest way to do it. But before we paint these, we have to do a couple of things. First thing we have to do is remove the pieces that we're not going to paint. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to cut 3 of our vertical panels in half. So this one right here on the right is a horizontal panel, and this one on the left is a vertical panel. It's these vertical panels we're going to cut in half. The reason we're cutting them in half is because we don't have enough of these little squares with the number of castings that we've done. Now splitting these in half is pretty easy. Just get yourself an X-Acto knife or some sort of hobby knife and find where the center is. I can just eyeball it and kind of know where the center is here. But if if you're curious, you could always just put a ruler up to it and find, it's 2 inches tall, find the middle 1 inch mark. But what we're going to do is we're going to find the center, hold it down, and to make sure it scores nice and neatly, we're just going to run the knife across it 3 or 4 times across the middle. Wow, that just broke off on its own. Let's try another one here. I was actually going to try to break it over the side of a table, but that worked out pretty good without doing anything. So just kind of run it across several times, and then find the center point, put it right on the edge of a really sharp edge of some kind, and then just kind of hold it down and then just snap it off quickly, just like that. And it will be really fairly exact. Now you can look at it. If you've got any rough edges or if it doesn't quite seem even, you can just put it on a little piece of sandpaper and just kind of sand it back and forth a little bit. But just broken off straight, what you can do is compare it to an actual 1 inch square and see how close it is. It should line up really pretty close. Okay, the next step is to tape these down to a piece of cardboard so we can spray paint them and stain them. I'm going to use double stick tape, and I like using the cheap kind because it's 3/4 inch wide, it sticks really well, and it's cheaper. So that's what I'm going to use to stick these down. So this piece of cardboard is probably about 2 foot, maybe a little bit less. I think there's enough room on it to spread all these pieces out. If not, I'll just use another piece of cardboard. So just take a strip of tape about long enough to go all the way across. And sometimes this cheap double stick tape is a little bit tricky to get a piece the size you need, but I'm just going to go and I'm going to stick it across here. And that should stick down pretty good. We want to hold them in place not only to spray paint them, but hold them in place so we can stain them. So I'm going to take these big pieces and I've double stick taped a piece of fine sandpaper down, because a lot of times there's kind of a ridge around the edge and that'll keep it from sticking down well. So I'm going to take and I'm just going to sand the bottom a little bit, brush any dust off with my hand, and lightly stick it down. Now when you push it down, don't push too hard because you can snap that panel right in half if you do. So just a light pressure should stick it down pretty well. If it doesn't stick very well, then you're probably going to have to sand it just a little bit more. Now see, I already snapped this one accidentally. See, I snapped it in half? Not a big deal because I can just use a little bit of glue and glue it back together when the time comes. I'm actually going to stick it back together like that. Take another piece, sand the back, wipe off the excess, and take it and then just kind of gently put it down. And just kind of check to make sure it's stuck. Try to knock it off of there. It looks like that one stuck pretty good. So we'll go on to the next one. Wipe the excess off. And it seems like it takes a bit of time to do this, but in actuality, this is a lot quicker way to do this. Now that these are stuck down, I got about 2 boards worth of panel pieces here. And I am going to spray paint them in almond color. This is almond satin, and it works fine. I would have preferred an almond flat, but they didn't have an almond flat. Now your first question may be, why in the world am I spray painting this almond? What we're going to do is we're going to spray paint it almond, and then we're going to stain it with this brown shoe polish. Now, you might wonder, why wouldn't I just paint it red? It's supposed to be brick, right? Isn't brick supposed to be red? Well, in reality, brick is sort of all kinds of colors. It's kind of more of a brown than it is red. It's kind of a reddish brown. The reason I chose this color scheme is because I was having a bit of trouble. You know, most of our beams are spray painted black and dry brushed with the earth tone color for these colors of windows. Now, what kind of brick is going to go with that? Well, I had tried several different color combinations to try to find something that would go along with that particular color. I have tried, you know, painting brown and dry brushing white. I tried painting black and a number of other things to try to get some of these colors to work. And what I found in most cases, when I tried to actually do brick red, you know, that works pretty well. You know, you can kind of see that all right, but this looked like too much of a toy that you would buy. It looked like red Legos. It didn't look like anything that really existed. Some of my other cases where the brick actually looked pretty good because the brick was more brown, the brick was dark and the timbers were dark, so everything was dark. Nothing really stood out. The timbers didn't stand out from the background. In order for this to work, the background has to be lighter with dark timbers on top. So the trick is to find a light color of brick that works. And my solution was the almond color paint with the brown shoe polish on top of it. And that way, the background would be lighter and you would have a darker sort of timber on top. So that's like if I take my house here, I'm going to take the roof off of it. And let's see if you can get sort of a close-up of what the side of this would look like here. That's with the light brick on the background and the dark timbers. And I think that actually makes it stand out fairly well. And even if you can kind of see on the inside, we've got the brick is kind of light colored there with the dark timbers on top. And the brick is more of a golden brick. So I think that works out really well. You know, rather than everything being dark, you've got some contrast in your walls. You can tell that they're brick because they look like brick, but it's, you know, more of a golden brick instead. Now I'm spray painting these outside, and I've got my almond spray paint here. And notice that my left hand I've got a rubber glove. That's to keep me from spray painting on my hand. Now spray painting this is quick and easy. Keep in mind that we only have to cover the front face of this. I'm not worried about getting around the sides because you're never going to see the sides. Sides are going to be covered up or painted or run against something, so we're just going to spray paint the tops of them. Be sure to do this outside or in a well-ventilated area. Let's see if I can get this in here, right? We got my spray can. Let's turn it around the right way. And I am just going to cover the top surface really well. And even if you don't get down into the cracks, it's not a big deal because we're going to put stain in the cracks anyway. So I'm going to go face down on the front of it, and just be sure that we get a good coat that you don't see the gray plaster or whatever underneath of it. Now the second step here is to stain these brick panels. After they're spray painted ivory, what we're going to do is we're going to use Kiwi liquid brown shoe polish. Comes in a bottle, looks like this. Get yourself a little cup, get yourself a big wide brush to brush this on. You're going to need probably a whole lot of paper towels. Okay, let's start by getting the shoe polish we need in the cup. You can take a screwdriver and pry under this and lift it off. You know, I've done this so much that I can just kind of take my thumb under there and pop this sucker off. And what you want to do is you want to pour it. We're going to use quite a bit, so, you know, let's start out with about that much in the cup here. Okay, as we're staining these, we will have a little bit of time to work with this. I would probably do 1, 2, or 3 of these and then blot them off and then move on to the next one. So this is going to be pretty quick. I'm just going to dip our brush into the shoe polish. And what you want to do is you want to get a good coat of shoe polish. You want it to go all the way down into the cracks. Don't want to knock my cup over here. But put it down in there. Get it pushed down pretty far. And let's see, I'm just going to go ahead and do a second one here. Let's get it down in there. And kind of if you brush back and forth across it and get it to sort of run down into the cracks, that's fine. Now I'm just going to hold this in my left hand. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to wad up a paper towel like this. And then I am going to blot this up. So just sort of blot this up and get most of it off. And uneven blotting works pretty good. So you don't have to, don't try to clean it off exactly, but then you'll probably have to turn this around, and you might want to get a rubber glove on your other hand. So what we're going to do is we're just going to blot this up kind of like this, and that's pretty much good. That's all there is to it. And these are done, and they look really nice. This gets into all of the details, and these are sandblasted sort of underneath around the cracks, so it will get into all the divots and other little details here. Okay, here's what I found to be the easiest steps in doing this. We're probably going to do about, a foot of pieces at a time. So we've got the shoe polish in a cup here. What we're going to do is we're going to do, these are like 1 by 2 inch pieces. We're going to just coat several of them. I'm just going to go down the line. And be sure that you get the brush. Oh, and by the way, it's probably a good idea if you wet your brush first and get water down in the bristles, because if you go a long time with the shoe polish without cleaning out the brush, the shoe polish will dry deep up in the bristles and it'll be hard to clean the brush. Which kind of relates to the other subject of this shoe polish is actually water soluble, so you can wash up your paintbrush with water when you get done. Okay, let's get a few more of these done here until I'm just about out of view of the camera here. Okay, well, let's say we'll go with those. We've got it all the way down in there. Next thing you want to do is take your brush and scrape it on the side of the cup and get all this excess shoe polish back out of the brush. Okay, scrape it off. Then some of the shoe polish is pooled up on the sides. You can see like right here we got a pool of it. What I would do is just go around the sides of it and wipe up this extra pool, because if we have extra shoe polish pooling, it's actually going to dry to kind of a thick layer, and we don't want a thick layer of shoe polish anywhere, because that's going to keep our panels from sticking together properly. So I'm going to wipe up this excess, and then I'm just going to scrape it off on the side of the cup, so the only excess we have are really on the face of the tiles. And of course I'll probably go across the tops of these just to make sure I don't have any. And then across the bottom as well. Just have that kind of soak up that puddle. And I need to dry my brush out a little bit more, because if you leave a puddle, then it means your brush still has got a lot of stuff in it. Okay, I've blotted up all the excess that's around the side, so I'm going to set my brush down. I'm going to grab a paper towel and kind of wad it up, and then just sort of gently go over it and dab it up. And you don't have to do real crazy as far as the dabbing. But you want kind of an irregular pattern when you dab it up here. So just kind of dab it up, and then if you aren't soaking up enough, you turn your paper towel around and use another side of it. Okay, well, all the brick panels are done, and all in all, it probably only took about 15 minutes to stain these. Maybe closer to 20, because I had to deal with the camera thing.